Okay, this screencast is going over what is said at the Learning Area meeting on the 3rd of August. So this meeting was set up to for me to go through where we were on our appraisal for this year, and so where we were, and sort of where we're going to go from now. So just to sum up, where we were on our appraisal is that we had established that the sort of the rationale of this year's appraisal we were going to try and do was to try and focus on something a little bit more motivational rather than just going through the standards. And in that, we were looking at specifically the option of you guys being given the opportunity to choose what you see fit and what you see most appropriate in terms of the things that you would like to investigate and inquire in. So the way in which we're going to set this one out is there's two types of appraisal that we're going to look at. You can either do your own reflection or inquiry based on some sort of narrative write-up, and that, as mentioned before, is going to be based on a reflection of something that you wanted to do, with the whole idea, the rationale is going to be a bit more inspirational for you, motivational, inspired, something that's going to spark your interest in the job that we do, rather than being told. So the only sort of sticking point, or the only thing, any parameters you've really got to meet, is that they've got to have some form of connection to SG 1 to 4, so some sort of link to ARCL, response, teaching and learning, and the curriculum approach, or IT. So bearing in mind we're halfway through the year, some of this might give you a bit more impetus, or you might be have some momentum on this already. And also additionally, what we've experienced might have some sort of bearing in it. So your inquiry really would be sort of looking forward from now going forward, which is something I think I'm going to be looking at. Or your reflection could be looking back in terms of how, but it needs to be something that focused towards, something purposeful, something specific that you have done, rather than just meandering through and wasn't locked down a wonderful time type of thing. Excuse me. So that's where we're going through this one. In terms of presenting it, you can be done as the inquiry structure, as we've done in the past, as a spiral. Or we can present it as a narrative, as a lot of people chose to do last year. So that is a way in which could be done. You can do it as a reflection or as an inquiry. On the flip side, the alternative way that you can do it is to address against the standards. And so in looking at this one, you can make it very standards focused. You can, by presenting and writing up your evidence against the 6 standards. And so, for example, this is a little snapshot of the example I've done. This is available up on Teams, but this is one that I wrote up as an example. So for each of the standards, there's 1 standard, 2 standards. I've written things up like that. So the choice there is yours, but I think it's worth just looking at, spend a little bit of time looking at just refamiliarising ourselves with the standards. So we've got 6 standards. So as we can see here, so it starts with the treaty, and this acts as the grounding point to everything that we do. So in looking at this one, what I learned, and I wasn't aware of this one, is that they are written with the whole idea that they build upon each other. So the reason why the treaty is the very bottom one is because effectively it governs everything that we do in education. Okay, our bicultural agreement. So the treaty is what is the foundation block of our education system. And now within that one, professional learning is all about how we have learned to be educators. So the techniques, that we have learned as part of the tools of our trade. So, for example, how inquiry-based learning is something that is fundamental to what our education system is, and collaboration. And these are facets that have come from the Treaty of Waitangi, okay, which have come from this agreement. Collaboration, for example, is a really good example of this one. Okay, now with that one, to be collaborative, you need to develop your professional relationships. You need to develop those relationships in collaboration. In inquiring, you need to have relationships going on. So you've got all of these. So from the treaty's point of view, you've then got the basis of what our teaching techniques are all about. Which then lead into professional relationships, and then on top of that, that therefore develops a culture within our practice, and it starts tipping into our classroom, whereby we're welcoming, because this also links to Manaakitanga, as we'll see shortly, to develop a very welcoming and safe environment, safe culture, to ensure that these relationships are based on what we've learned, and the focus is going to be on the learning, teaching and learning. So from these 4 point of view, these 4 blocks here that are building upon each other, these are very contextual, and in a way, as I'll explain shortly, is that I see this is more about our conduct as educators in and around the school. When you start coming up to design for learning and the teaching, these build from the basis of this that allow us to design learning in a certain way which reflects all of these things here. And from once this learning is designed, our schemes of work and our curriculums, then we just simply go out and do it, okay, knowing what we know as our educators, as educators down here, and as who our learners are. We therefore start implementing this design for learning. So this is these are the 6 standards, and they all fit together in terms of this building upon each other, and that's why they need to be viewed holistically. So I'm not going to go through all this type of stuff, but we do have our 6 things I really want to point out is that we've got our 6 standards. We've got the waffle that the Education Council put out, and then we've got our cultural perspective as well. Okay, so this is obviously things. Now, the significant thing that I've put in, and this isn't something from the Education Council, this is something that's allowed me just to understand it, is that this is more contextual and it's outside the classroom, whereas these things, because they're our core, they're inside the classroom. So maybe when you're collecting evidence, bear these things in mind. But as we know, we need to keep these things as holistic as possible. So it's not just they run in isolation. They are very interdependent, and yeah. So that's just a real quick run through the standards, and I'm sure we are familiar with these ones. And forgive me if I am sort of teaching you guys to suck eggs a little bit. But a couple of things really dawned on me. I wasn't aware that they were designed to be built on top of each other in this way, and it dawned on me that this was quite a nice, easy way to sort of sum it up. So really, the treaty is the agreement, what we're all about. This agreement has led to us understanding that inquiry and collaborative problem solving is a mainstay of what our education system is all about. And because we're using inquiry and collaborative, relationships are fundamental to this. And once we've got our relationships developed in and around the school and in and around education, we can then develop a sort of culture based on learning, and forms further part of our relationships. And all of these 4 things are done contextually. With this one here, once we've got all these in place, we can then design our curriculum, design our schemes of work, and our content unit, our unit content, for delivery inside the classroom. And then teaching is simply we deliver it. Okay, deliver it using understanding the learners that we have in front of us. Okay, within that there's obviously further more facets. So just to go back, if you do wish to, as a bit of an example, as I say, my example that I popped up here, this is still work in progress. There's still more things that I can possibly put in, but this is something that you can have a look at it. It's in the Teams folder, so yeah, as an example. Okay, so moving on. Put that one. Okay, so where are we going next? So in terms of putting in some sort of target and timeline, what I would suggest is that our next learning area meeting, week 9, will reflect on where we are on appraisal so far. I'm obviously available to as part of my management unit for discussion and sort of help thinking about what you're going to be looking at in terms of if you're doing an inquiry, reflection, or to try and get together your evidence for your standards. So as ever, please yell out. And once again, observations. If you'd like me to come in to make a generic observation, which is going to help towards your the observations that are required, please, I'm more than happy to do this one. And anything, if the observations can be generic or they can be inquiry based. So yeah. So I think for the rest of today's meeting, what we'll do is if we split off in pairs and just have conversations about about where we are on our inquiry.